What's going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to another episode. Amir and I are going to tell you how to and what to avoid when you're purchasing yourself a beautiful P71 or P7B Crown Victoria. Stick around. What to look for when you're purchasing the P71, P70B. Drive it and hear the differential in the back. If it's making a grinding noise when you turn, that means you got a bad differential. You gotta really study this car when you pull up to it in person. Go underneath, look at if it's rusted, look at the ball joints, look at the stabilizer links. These components will tell you a lot about the health of the vehicle and the purpose that it was used for. A lot of these cars sit and idle over time, so they're gonna have 5,000 idle hours, 7,000 idle hours. These cars are built to run. It doesn't matter. Not saying don't really take in the idle hours, but every car out there idles every day. It doesn't matter. It's a clock that you can tell how many. Look at the stuff that matter. Look at the transmission fluid. Drive the car. Feel if it pulsates to the right, the brakes, the pads, the calipers, how it shifts, the noises it makes when it goes over a speed bump or a pothole. Put it in reverse and floor it back and see how healthy this car is. The day I picked Amira up, I wasn't even purchasing this car. I was actually gonna go look at another Crown Vic, and I pulled up and it was sold. This car was there, and this car actually came out of left field for me. So, you know, everything happens for a reason. But you really have to. When I saw Amira, I put her on a lift in their shop, and I made sure what I was getting myself into. No leaks, 69,000 mile car. It was only used at night. And yeah, all the shocks were straight. I drove her. I burned out in her before I even bought her. That was a mistake, but you know, these engines are torquey, but that's for another day. Sorry for the wind, it just picked up. But you really have to study these cars. Look at the chassis, look at the fender wells, look at the wheel wells, if they're rusted or not. You have to really pay attention to what you're doing. Also look at the body lines. If the car's been hit, check out the Carfax. If the body's been hit, it won't be a nice straight line like this at all. Okay, even here the seams will be off. Okay, a lot of people clone civilian Crown Vics. So you got to look at the VIN number. If it doesn't say a P71, it's not a P71. How it drives tells you a lot about the car. It's the way it's communicating with you. So take it on a trip, take it on a drive of 10-20 minutes. Hit a speed bump, hit a turn pretty hard and see if it bounces too much or it hits it and keeps going. You have to pay attention when you're purchasing a government vehicle. So if you're getting a car from like Chicago, New York, Boston, just the northern states, there's a lot of things you have to look for. For example, the Fender Wells, they rust all the time because that's where Ford did not cover it. So they start kind of making bubbles here and they will rust over time, and then the entire car will rust and start falling apart. How you can manage that is touch up paint, or you can just go ahead and if you have the time and money, you can just sand it down and respray the whole thing. Now, let me show you what to look for underneath the engine. So like I'm saying here, the heater core hose will start popping off on this side right here. This guy, this tube is sitting right on a piece of plastic that pops up like that, and it just sits on it. Also on the older models, this crossover was plastic. Ford enhanced it by switching it to aluminum. So the valve covers, if you can tell, if you follow my channel, I just replaced both valve covers on Amira. They started leaking, so I went ahead and you see how clean they are now. I used good solid blue seals all the way around, and that way they start. This is plastic, you guys. This is plastic, so they start leaking, they'll break, and if you take them off with force, you will crack the cover. And then if you don't pay attention to what you're doing, you go ahead and put it back on, it's going to leak and it's going to cause a mess in there. This side as well. This side is the worst side to put the to replace the engine cover, the valve cover. EGR valve. Now those are super easy to take off. There's 2 bolts right here. You take that off, you have to clean them. A lot of carbon, a lot of buildup, and that buildup closes the valve, or it gets it stuck open or closed, doesn't matter. Either way, you're gonna get a check engine light, therefore you cannot pass emissions. You have to replace it, and by replacing it, you have to get an OEM part. You cannot get one off of eBay made in China. The car will not like it, I promise. And because you can't get it from eBay, I know exactly where to get it from. Follow the link in the description below. Now, the older models had the breather hose on the intake tube. There's 2 right here. Those fail all the time. Deterioration happens, heat happens, and they're rubber. They start failing, they start leaking vacuum, and your car starts hiccuping, and you realize, holy crap, what's wrong with my car? Those, pay attention to them. I usually spray silicone, like grease, just to keep them soft, away from deterioration. All you got to do is take them out, spray them, put them back in, and that is it. Cooler lines have little O-rings in them, right? So when you press that in, the O-ring holds all the fluid inside, so it doesn't leak. That's super easy to take out. I think it's a 7mm. You take those out, and then you replace it with newer rings. The rings, I'd say AutoZone, $12 for a whole pack. And every time it leaks, you go ahead and swap them out. They are great, and this is an actual super easy job. It's just you got to get under the car for that. Transmission on these cars, the 4R70W and the 75Es, depending on what year you have. On all Panthers, you have to service the transmission. Servicing the transmission is actually really much easier than you expect. A new transmission is about $1,000, depending where you go, of course. It usually goes from $1,000, $1,500. This transmission was $3,000. So there's a lot of things with the tranny that you have to watch, but you really just gotta pay attention to the fluid and the color of the fluid. Smell it on your finger. There's like categories for these cars that you have to maintain and prevent before you even think about tuning and putting wheels and brakes and blah blah blah. The rear end, flush it, drain it. All you got to do is take off the 10 bolts, drain it, put new fluid back on. I've already done this about a year ago in Amira. I think it was like 75W 140 weight. From, you can get them from all the auto ports. Drain the fluid in the back, because these cars, they run so hard, and when they do, they start, like I said, like the transmission, you have to fix them, you have to maintain them. If you really love these cars, and I love this car, as you can tell, you really do have to take care of these cars because they had such a hard life. Now I got lucky. This is my second P71. The first one was just, it was cool, it was black, it was nice, but it was also not as of a shape this was in 5 years ago. So you gotta maintain it. Also the brakes on these cars are phenomenal. They stop with power, they grab, they bite, but after you get them from the auction or wherever you're getting this car from, change the brakes and the rotors. I guarantee you, if the person didn't buy it and had it for a while, you're going to have to replace the brakes if it was strictly from a government auction. Also, you guys, this guy right here, the master switch, these buttons go all the time. It's either the switches or the actual motors all the way around. So they start kind of slowing down. Take these out, clean them up. It's just a clip. You just pop this off, clean them up, see how dirty they are from the internals. You never know, you can easily clean it. I've done this. I've never ever replaced this. Watch it go out now. But I've never replaced this in 5 years. I've always just kept them clean. And yeah, it's usually these and the front passenger. The rear ones never really go out because they never get used, and when they do, they're kind of just newish. But this guy goes out all the time. Alright guys, well, that's it for now. I hope I taught you guys and you saw exactly what to look for and what to prevent on these cars. Cars are just not perfect whatsoever, but you can make it perfect. I've had her for 5 years. One of the best cars I will ever have in my life, and I can tell you that for sure. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.
Like